All right, guys, so I talked about this before, but I really didn't get into much detail about it because at the time it wasn't really official. But now it looks like it's more official than it was then, because the mainstream media is now saying that Republican GOP truck driver Ed Durr has officially won his race over New Jersey Senate President Steve Sweeney. Now, this is a huge upset, because you guys understand, Steve Sweeney is a Democrat powerhouse in New Jersey, right? He was the president of the Senate. He was next in line to run for governor in that state. And somebody like Ed Durr, who's a nobody, right? He is a common man, right? He is basically what AOC was, or what she advertised herself to be, in regards to, you know, being just a regular working class person before they got into politics, right? This is kind of who he was. He again, is just a normal everyday person. And him upsetting a Democrat kingpin whom spent over $1 million in his race is a big deal. I mean, honestly, this is a bigger upset than what happened in Virginia. And quite honestly, I mean, this is what really should be scaring the Democrats, right? Grassroots Republicans that are running on the rejections of the Democrat policies, for example, like pandemic restrictions, which is what Ed Durr is essentially saying led him to victory. It kind of shows us that not only are people rejecting Democrat policies, but they're also rejecting the establishment, as they're really tired of these empty suits, right? I think people want to see normal folks who actually have real life experience, that actually have jobs, you know, be our political leaders, right? I think that's kind of what this is a sign of. But before I get more into this, let's actually watch a news clip of, you know, kind of the details in terms of what happened in his race, and a little bit from Mr. Ed Durr, so you guys get a better understanding of who he is, and then I will go from there. Take a look.
On the political front, he is suddenly the political it person in New Jersey. Republican Ed Durr, a truck driver for Raymore and Flanagan, has toppled South Jersey Democrat and State Senate President Steve Sweeney. Action News reporter Bob Brooks caught up with Durr tonight.
A walk with the dogs at dusk tonight is about the only downtime Ed Durr has had this week. That's because he's now New Jersey State Senator-elect Durr. But he said you shouldn't sleep on his political career like many did on his campaign.
We've been ignored. We, the people, have been ignored.
Durr, a career truck driver now working for Raymore and Flanagan, has done what many said was impossible, unseating arguably the second most powerful politician in the Garden State. That's the longest ever tenured Senate President, Democrat Steve Sweeney of the 3rd District.
I knew if I could motivate the people to vote, then I had a chance.
His victory was achieved by a humble grassroots campaign.
I went and knocked on doors and I listened to the people. They told me what their problems were. They told me what their complaints were, and I listened.
He says he'll be focused on property taxes.
Love to see homeowners come back to New Jersey instead of leaving. 7 out of 10 moves are out of New Jersey.
And strongly disagrees with how Governor Phil Murphy handled education during the pandemic.
When Governor Murphy closed the schools and they lost their schooling years. So that's going to be a passion of mine that I don't think that should ever happen ever again.
There's also a rumor he only spent $153 on his entire campaign, which he wanted to clarify.
All right, $153 was prior to the primary. I spent closer to over $5,000, less than 10.
As for Senator Sweeney, he has not conceded, and he released this statement today that reads, "While I am currently trailing in the race, we want to make sure every vote is counted. Our voters deserve that, and we will wait for the final results." Okay, and right now we're outside of the Raymore and Flanagan Distribution Center where Durr works. He lives right down the street, so it's very convenient for him. And just a little bit about him. He's married. He has a wife, 3 adult children, 6 grandchildren. He's a lifelong New Jerseyan and proud graduate of Gloucester City High School. For now, reporting in Gibbstown, Bob Brooks, Channel 6, Action News.
I mean, I'll give you the simple quote, knocking on doors. The same statement I got from everybody when I introduced myself and said who I was running against. Good luck. So,
why do you think it happened now?
The people. It didn't happen because of me. I'm nobody. I'm absolutely nobody. I'm just a simple guy. It was the people. It was a repudiation of the policies that have been forced down their throats. It's people told they can't have a job, they can't go to church, they can't go to school. They can't go shopping. They can't go and eat dinner. You cannot continue to tell people they cannot do things when we live in the freest country in the world, and you think you're just going to sit on your hands and do nothing. Governor Murphy kept saying no, 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 and Senator Sweeney sat there and, all right, whatever. So the people said, nah, you're not doing your job. Take a seat. We'll find somebody else who do the job.
All right, guys, so as you can see there, Mr. Durr, he is very, very, very humble in his victory, at least for right now. And that's something I love to see, right? He said, I'm a nobody, right? And it's all about the people. The people elected me because, they don't like the policies that have been implemented and pushed on them by the state. And he ran a grassroots campaign and showed that a grassroots campaign can beat $1 million campaign from the establishment. And that truly is a Democrat's worst nightmare, right? So that's why I think they really should be more concerned about this than they actually be about Virginia. Because if this is, what's going to be happening across the country for the GOP, a massive grassroots backlash against, again, some of these policies, whether it's critical race theory, whether that's a pandemic, that's what they actually really need worried about, right? But his opponent, Mr. Steve Sweeney, who again spent millions of dollars on his campaign, is refusing to concede, right? And I just find this to be very, very, very ironic coming from Democrats who have told us that, hey, once you lose, once the mainstream media say you lost, then you just need to give up and bow out, right? You need to accept the L, but they're not accepting the L here. So let's read here. New Jersey State Senate President Steve Sweeney is not conceding in a race. The Associated Press called for Edward Durr, a virtually unknown Republican challenger, on Thursday morning. Quote, the results from Tuesday's election continue to come in. For instance, there were 12,000 ballots recently found in one county, Sweeney said in an email to Politico. Wow, that sounds very, very, very familiar, right? Does that not sound like things that the other side was saying? Right, when it came to, waiting till all the results were in, right, making sure that all the legal votes were counted, right? Does that not sound very, very, very familiar? But apparently, again, when the Democrats do this, it's okay. It's waiting to get all the results, right? Even though the mainstream media has called it. They said when the mainstream media has called it, then, hey, you know what? You got to just concede and bow out, or else you're an insurrectionist, right? You're a threat to democracy. So I wonder, is the Democrats going to say that Mr. Steve Sweeney here is a threat to democracy because he wants to make sure that all the ballots are counted, right? Because again, that was a bad thing, right? That was a bad thing before, right? Again, I just find it interesting how every single time the Democrats are placed in a certain situation, right, after complaining about the GOP doing it, they do the exact same thing, and then they act like it's okay, and the mainstream media just ignores it. There's not nearly as much backlash as there was when the GOP does this. And again, in my opinion, I think that every candidate has a right to do that, right? So again, I'm not even like mad at him for doing it. I just, again, find the irony here to be interesting, right? While I am currently trailing in the race, we want to make sure every vote is counted. Our voters deserve that, and we will wait for the final results. Again, that sounds very, very, very familiar, okay? Sounds very familiar. Sweeney, who as Senate President is the state's second most powerful elected official, was down more than 2,000 votes to Durr, a truck driver who spent less than $10,000 on the race. Sweeney's projected loss in South Jersey's 3rd legislative district was the most shocking in an election that featured a number of surprises, including Governor Phil Murphy's closer than expected victory over Republican Jack Cattarelli. Sweeney's statement on Thursday echoes similar statements to Cattarelli's messaging since AP called the gubernatorial race for Murphy on Wednesday. On Thursday morning, the Cattarelli campaign sent out a fundraising email that said, this race is far from over. Our team is making sure every legal vote is counted and the will of the people is heard loud and clear. It is widely expected that the gubernatorial election could be headed to a recount. Okay, so, I would find it interesting to see, right, since you have a Democrat, a major Democrat in the state of New Jersey, basically saying, hey, we need to wait and make sure every vote is counted, right? We have 12,000 ballots left from one county that we found, versus a Republican, right, who's, in a very, very close governor race saying, hey, you know what, we need to wait and make sure every vote is counted. We're not necessarily conceding. Both of them are not conceding. I wonder if the mainstream media picks up on this, how are they going to cover it, right? Are they going to say that the Republican is trying to steal the election while saying that the Democrat, well, they're just trying to make sure every legal vote is counted, right? They're just trying to make sure that democracy is being carried out correctly here, right? Is that how this is going to be covered, right? Again, in my opinion, I'm not mad at the Democrat candidate for doing this, and I'm not mad at the Republican candidate for doing it because I think it's their right, right? It is your right to make sure that every vote is counted before conceding, okay? I think that is a fair thing to do. Again, I just find it fascinating how when Republicans do this, the narrative is that, oh, well, they're trying to steal the election, that democracy is at stake, blah, blah, blah. But when Democrats do it, they just kind of ignore it. Again, and Democrats have a long history of doing this, not just in this race, but also, again, when Trump got elected, they were complaining about it. Back when I think Bush won, they was complaining about, like, they have a long history of doing this. But yet we don't hear the mainstream media saying that, hey, is this guy insurrectionist, right? Are the Democrats insurrectionists? Are they trying to steal the election, right? Because, again, they told us that once the mainstream media calls it, then it's over, right? You don't have a right to go through the legal process. You don't have a right to make sure all the ballots are counted. Again, in my opinion, whether you're a Democrat or Republican candidate, you have the right to do that if that's what you want to do, right? But again, the mainstream media told us no. But I mean, honestly, guys, the biggest takeaway here is not even that. It's just that the fact that you have a GOP candidate, a nobody, a truck driver, right? And I'm not going to say he's a nobody because these people are somebodies, right? Normal working class people are somebodies. And I think that that's what people forget. Like, the problem with politics is that we have too many elitist politicians from Ivy League universities, to be quite honest with you, Republicans and Democrats, that are in office, that are not in touch with the everyday working class American, that know nothing about what the everyday working class American is going through, and quite simply don't care. They're just there to line their own pockets and to do the bidding of their donors, right? And again, it's just amazing, and it's a very good, feel-good story to see somebody who's a real working class American beat an establishment politician who has millions of dollars behind him. It just shows you that, if you put in the work, if you do the grassroots efforts, money can't even buy you elections, right? That can beat money. That can beat the establishment, right? It shows that, at the end of the day, the power is still in the hands of the people, right? Regardless of how much money the establishment has, okay? So again, I love this story. Congratulations to Mr. Edward Durr. And, I hope that he maintains his victory here, because this is what we need to see more of in politics. We need to see more regular, normal, working class people in office that are there, not because they want the position of just saying that, hey, I'm a politician or whatever they want to fake. No. They're there because they feel like they need to be there, right? Not because they want to be there, because they need to be there, right? That's the problem. We got too many politicians in office that are there simply because of the clout that comes with being a politician, rather than being there because they feel like, okay, my country needs me, right? And I think that's the way it's supposed to be. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.